He walked into police station searching for his son, tired, dignified, and confused. An arrogant officer saw an old veteran and decided to humiliate him, pouring water on his head. What he didn't know, this was the father of the new police chief. It started like any ordinary morning in Ridgepoint. The sun had barely risen when James Carter, 65, stepped out his front door alone. He wore his faded navy jacket with a Veterans of Foreign Wars pin, the one his late wife said made him look like honor itself. His mind wasn't as sharp as it once was, but today his mission felt clear. His son, his Malcolm, needed him. He couldn't explain the feeling, just an urgent pulse in his chest that only parents understand. Inside the house, Nurse Sarah Miller had stepped away for just 5 minutes. A quick call about her brother's minor accident. She expected James would stay in the kitchen, maybe sorting through his military medals. When she returned to find the door open, her heart dropped. By then, James was already blocks away on Magnolia Avenue. His worn shoes made soft sounds on the sidewalk, but his determination was loud in his heart. He remembered the Ridgepoint Police Department from years ago, a red brick building with worn steps. When strangers looked concerned, he simply smiled and said, "My boy works for the law. I'm going to see him." Most people just nodded and moved on, having learned to ignore what made them uncomfortable. By the time James reached the station, the sun beat down on his back. His silver hair was slightly mussed, but his eyes shone with a father's courage. At the base of the steps, he muttered, "He's in there. He needs me." Inside was another world, cold lights, white noise, the smell of stale coffee. Behind a tall counter sat Officer Brian Cargill, scrolling through his phone, expecting nothing unusual. James approached slowly, hands shaking slightly, but voice steady. "Excuse me, sir," he said quietly. Cargill didn't look up. James tried again. "Sir, I'm here to see Malcolm. Malcolm Carter. He's my son." That got his attention. Cargill glanced up, taking in the elderly man with worn shoes and dated military jacket. "Your son works here?" he asked with obvious skepticism. "Yes," James replied with a gentle smile. "He's here." "He is." Cargill stared like James was a malfunctioning appliance. "Mister, you got the wrong place." "No, sir. This is a police department. He's here. Please just call him for me." Cargill chuckled without humor. "You can't just come in here like this. You think we're some kind of visitor center?" James blinked. "I'm not trying to cause trouble." "Then leave," Cargill snapped. James's smile faltered. "I can wait right here if that's all right." "It's not," Cargill said, rising from his chair. A few people in the waiting room turned to watch as James clutched his wallet tighter. "Please, I just want to see him. He's my boy." "Ain't no Malcolm Carter here, old man," Cargill scoffed. "He's the chief," James said quietly. That made Cargill pause before laughing. "Oh, you think the chief is your son? That's rich." James didn't respond. He just looked past Cargill toward the hallway behind the desk. Maybe it led to Malcolm. He took a step toward it. Cargill's face reddened. "Hey!" he barked. "I said stay back." But James didn't stop. That tiny, quiet defiance was a spark that would shake the building to its core. It wasn't just about one cop and one veteran. It was about dignity meeting power, about a father's love walking straight into the heart of everything broken. Officer Cargill stood frozen momentarily, his hand twitching. His posture shifted, shoulders squared, chin lifted, eyes narrowed. To him, James wasn't just physically trespassing, but morally crossing a line. Cargill didn't like challenges. He liked control. "Sir, I'm not going to say it again. Turn around right now, or I will call backup." James didn't move, not from defiance, but confusion. His hand reached instinctively for the wall as fog seemed to cloud his mind. Malcolm had told him once, "If anything happens, Dad, come find me at the station." He was doing what his son asked. Why was it going wrong? In 3 strides, Cargill vaulted over the counter with ugly energy, like he'd been waiting for an excuse. A gasp escaped from the waiting area. No one intervened. Cargill's boots thundered against the linoleum. "Mister, don't make me put hands on you." James spun around, startled. "Please, I'm just trying to find my—" "I don't give a damn who you're trying to find." Cargill exploded. You don't go where you're not allowed. You don't just walk into a police station like you own the place. A woman pulled her toddler closer, shielding his ears. An elderly man in a veteran's cap leaned forward on his cane, visibly tense. The room crackled with electricity, the tension between what people knew was right and their fear of stepping forward. James shrank into himself, not from weakness but from the shock of being treated this way. He'd served his country with honor. He used to command respect. Now he stood lost in a place that should have brought safety, being treated like trash. "I didn't mean to upset you," his voice quavered. "You're not listening," Cargill snapped. "You veterans never listen." Those words, "you veterans," he said them like they tasted bad. Everyone in the room felt their weight. Cargill turned abruptly and snatched a half-full water bottle from the intake desk. His fingers tightened around it as James watched in disbelief. Not in 2025. Not here. Not from someone wearing the same badge his son wore with pride. Cargill twisted the cap methodically. The sound, click-crackle, seemed deafening in the quiet room. Then, without a word, he stepped forward and dumped it over James's head. The water poured without warning. It drenched his silver hair, flattening it against his scalp, running in rivulets down his weathered cheeks. It soaked his navy jacket, turning the fabric dark and heavy. James didn't move or flinch. He just stood there, arms slightly out, eyes wide with shock. The room watched in stunned horror. Cargill let the bottle fall to the floor where it bounced twice and rolled. "There," he muttered. "Maybe now you'll learn." No one spoke except a little girl who whispered, "Why'd he do that to Grandpa?" James brought his hand to his mouth, not to wipe away water, but because something rose in his chest, not anger or fear, but deep heartbreak. The kind you inherit. The kind you thought the world had left behind. A moment later, the veteran with the cane stood up and offered James his monogrammed blue handkerchief. "Sir," he said gently, "you didn't deserve that." Cargill snarled, "Sit your butt down, old man." The veteran turned to him, unflinching. "You're going to regret this. Not just because it's wrong, but because you don't even know who you just laid hands on." Then came the sound that would change everything. Heavy, purposeful boots. The back hallway door creaked open, and a voice, low and clear, cut through the tension like thunder. "Dad!" Every head turned. Standing in the doorway, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed, was Chief Malcolm Carter. His presence filled the lobby without words. He took one look at his father, dripping, trembling, humiliated, and his breath caught in disbelief that this was happening in the building he commanded, the place he'd promised would be safer under his leadership. He stepped forward. "Who?" he said slowly, each word measured like a blade. "Did this to my father?" Cargill's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no sound emerged. The room held its breath. Even the overhead lights seemed to dim. That was the moment Ridgepoint sins caught up with it, when the man with the badge realized he'd just ended his career with one cruel mistake. Silence fell over the lobby like a tomb being sealed. No one moved. Not the people in chairs, not the officers behind glass, not even the man standing in a puddle, heart unraveling in the middle of the room. Malcolm stood motionless in the doorway. His posture remained military straight, but his eyes betrayed him. They weren't a commanding officer's eyes now. They were a son's eyes, staring at his humiliated father standing where he never should have been. Alone, he stepped forward, each footfall like thunder in a courtroom. 1, 2, 3. You could feel the reckoning building with every heavy step. "Chief, Cargill started, words crumbling in his mouth. Malcolm didn't answer. He walked past Cargill straight to his father. James looked up, eyes watering not from water, but from heartbreak. "Son," he whispered, voice paper thin. Malcolm unfastened his duty jacket and draped it over his father's shoulders. Gently, carefully. James leaned into him, arms around his waist like when Malcolm was a boy who'd skinned his knee. Now the roles had reversed. The child had become the protector. "I came to find you," James said. "I thought something happened to you." Malcolm looked at his father, then turned to Cargill. His voice was controlled but ice cold. "Who poured water on my father?" The room froze. Cargill swallowed hard. He entered a restricted area. I tried to redirect him. He was disoriented. So you poured water on him? I didn't mean it like that, sir. I was trying to de-escalate. You poured water, Malcolm said louder, on an elderly veteran asking for help, in front of the community, in my building. Chief, I didn't know it was your father. That's exactly the problem. You didn't know, so you assumed he didn't matter. He was disrupting operations. Your response was to assault him with water? I was under stress. We all work under stress, officer. Stress doesn't give you the right to treat someone like they're less than human. Malcolm pointed to his seated father. Look at him. Cargill hesitated. I said, look at him. Slowly, Cargill lifted his eyes. James didn't look back. His hunched shoulders and trembling hands said everything. Tell me that what you did was okay. Cargill's mouth opened, then closed. I can't. That's right. You can't. Malcolm turned to a young officer. Reynolds, escort Officer Cargill to the break room. No communication, no weapons. Don't let him leave. Understand? Yes, sir. As Cargill was led away, Malcolm addressed the room. If anyone thinks that behavior is acceptable, you won't work here under my watch. I don't care about your rank or how long you've worn that badge. If you treat people like they're beneath you, you won't wear that badge another day. That ends now. A murmur swept through the room. Not disagreement, but relief. Someone had finally said it aloud. With authority. Malcolm knelt before his father. I'm so sorry, Dad. James touched his cheek gently. I just missed you, he whispered. That's all. Malcolm closed his eyes, letting his father's touch sink in. Amid all the noise and anger, those 5 words were all that mattered. The lobby remained tense as Malcolm stood beside his father, drying his jacket. James gave a tired smile, one that tried to cover pain but couldn't quite manage it. An officer offered James water. The irony lost on no one. He politely declined. Officer Reynolds returned. He's in the break room, not resisting. Good. Write your incident report. Every detail. No sugarcoating. Malcolm leaned against the desk to exhale. His father sat wrapped in his dry shirt, looking up with glassy eyes that said everything without words. Officer Janine Morris approached. Chief, there's already press inquiries. Someone uploaded a clip. It's spreading. Malcolm nodded. Of course it is. He thanked the witnesses, asking for statements. The veteran with the cane stepped forward. Chief, I've seen a lot and kept quiet more than I'm proud of, but not today. I'll speak. Internal Affairs arrived. Lieutenant Diane Cole with investigators. She approached Malcolm. Chief Carter, you sure you want us handling this? It's personal. Exactly why I do. Cole spoke gently with James while her team documented everything. Malcolm watched from a distance. This was accountability in action, not speeches. Later in his office, Malcolm stared at his academy graduation photo, himself beaming, his father proud beside him in that same navy jacket, now hanging damp in the other room. He whispered, not here, not again. His anger wasn't just personal. It proved something deeper. The rot wasn't at the surface, but in the bone. And now it had a name. And a deadline. 3 weeks later, Malcolm met Cargill in a conference room. Alone, no cameras, no press. Cargill wore civilian clothes, looking smaller than the man who'd once barked orders. I'm not here to beg, Cargill began. Good, because that wouldn't change anything. I just need to say some things. Not for forgiveness. I know that's not coming. Malcolm folded his arms. Then talk. I've been a cop for 18 years. Thought I was doing it right. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing certain people, veterans, elderly folks, people who couldn't push back. I'd never say it aloud, never admitted it to myself, but I started acting like they didn't matter. You know what's worse than a man who acts like that? Malcolm asked. A man who doesn't even realize he's doing it. Cargill nodded. That's what scares me now. I didn't wake up one day planning to become the problem, but I did. You didn't just become the problem, Malcolm said. You made my father afraid in a place where his son is the chief. I didn't know it was him. And if it had been someone else's father, would you still have done it? Cargill looked away. I don't know. Then you just answer my question. Cargill slid a folded paper across the table. A list of things I saw, covered up. I started writing it down the night I saw your father in that chair. Malcolm examined it. Why now? Because I don't want to take this to my grave. Malcolm pocketed the paper. I'll have internal affairs verify every word. Good. They should. The disciplinary hearing was brief. Cargill was permanently terminated, his law enforcement certification revoked. There was no applause, just a collective exhale, a recognition that justice had finally arrived. That afternoon, Malcolm visited his father's house. James sat on the porch swing reading, a blue blanket around his shoulders. When he saw Malcolm, his eyes brightened. You look tired, son. I am, Malcolm admitted, sitting beside him. They sat in silence, watching wind scatter petals across the yard. The first real quiet Malcolm had experienced in weeks. Finally, James spoke softly. You did what you were supposed to do. Malcolm took his father's weathered hand, holding it like an anchor to something eternal. The next morning, Malcolm presented the department's new reforms to a packed town hall, mandatory body cameras with weekly audits, civilian oversight meetings, third-party complaint monitoring, quarterly bias training, and annual use of force reviews with automatic flagging of repeat offenders. The response was cautious applause, but something else filled the room too. Hope. Tentative but real. Afterward, a young boy approached with his grandfather. Are you the real chief? He asked shyly. Malcolm knelt down. Last time I checked. Does this mean police will be nice now? Malcolm paused. It means they'll be better. And if they're not, you come find me. The boy nodded firmly. His grandfather's look said more than words could. The Ridgepoint Gazette ran a headline, a new standard in Ridgepoint. But Malcolm was too busy to read it. Attending roll calls, dropping in on night shifts, interviewing new hires. Accountability wasn't a phase. It was a foundation. Slowly, things changed. Officers who once rolled their eyes now took notes. Citizens who avoided the station now entered with questions. Trust hadn't been restored, but it had begun. One afternoon, Malcolm found a teenage girl with a notebook outside the station. I'm writing about what justice looks like, she explained. How does it start? He thought for a moment. It starts small. It starts steady. And it starts when someone refuses to look away. She smiled and began writing as Malcolm held the door for her. Because that's how the story ends. Not with fireworks or headlines, but with doors left open, promises kept, and an understanding that justice isn't loud but patient and persistent. This story lingers because it speaks to something deeper than policy. It's about dignity and the quiet strength of a father whose love became a turning point. It reminds us that justice sometimes comes in silence, in doing right when no one's watching. Whether you're a parent, veteran, or someone who knows the cost of silence, this story shows that one voice, one moment of courage truly matters. If this moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments. We respect your experiences and would love to hear from you.